Alright, hi Programming 3. Due to the difficulty of this project, I'm going to go through, we'll call it starter code, but it is pretty extensive. Okay, so to start out with, we have the game of life displaying. Notice nothing is updating though. The code that you're going to write is going to calculate the next generation. So I'm going to try to make this as quick as possible. Let's get to it. Your code is going to go into grid.java. Notice we've got some instance variables. So we've got rows, columns, cell size is just for the display. You don't need to worry about. And then grid actually stores the 2D array itself. So as a reminder, rows are from left to right. So like this is row 0, row 1, row 2, row 3. And columns are up and down. Constructor, don't worry about. For testing, I've added what's called the glider setup, which is a series of cells that will move across the screen. So it can be used for testing. But all of our code is going to go inside next generation. So to start out with, we want to create an empty grid that we're going to temporarily store the values for the next generation. We're going to store the temporary values in that grid. Okay, so notice that the data type too is integer. So integer for the grid. So 0 represents a dead cell and 1 represents a live cell. All right, let's call it temp grid new integer array with size rows and calls. All right, boom. Step 1 complete. All right, step 2, visit every cell in the temporary grid. We want to count the number of neighboring cells and based on the rules determine whether the cell will be alive or dead in the next state. So I want to loop over the grid in I equals 0, I less than rows, I plus plus, for int j equals 0, j less than calls, j plus plus. All right, in step 1, we want to sum up the neighbors. So I'm going to make a variable called neighbor num. We're going to set it equal to 0 initially. Man, why is my formatting so bad? It is awful. But to do this, I'm going to make a helper method called count neighbor. Basically, this is just going to make the bounds checking a little bit easier so that we don't have to repeat ourselves too much. All right, so what this should return is 0 if the cell is dead, 1 if it's alive, but the reason we put it into its own method is that we can also check bounds. So we can say if we're off the grid to the left, or we're off the grid to the right, or we're off the grid to the top. Oh, whoopsies. Then we just want to return 0. So if we're on the edge of the screen, the neighboring cells do not count. Otherwise, we just want to return the value of the grid. All right, cool. So now neighbor num is actually just going to be us summing up the count neighbor for all the cells to the 8 adjacent cells. So for example, the top left is I minus 1, j minus 1, and we're pretty much just going to copy this. We need this 8 times. I know we could use a loop for this, but I'm not. I minus 1. J I plus 1. Okay. So, top left, immediately above top right, directly to the left. Oh, shoot, messed it up. Sorry, top left should be top middle. Sorry, the row should be the same. Okay. I guess the order doesn't really matter, but just so I wasn't lying before. Okay, so top middle, top right, directly left, directly right, bottom left, bottom middle, bottom right. Alright, so now we would need to have some if statements. So if our current cell is alive, so this is alive, and we could have it be, I don't know. I don't know if that works. Okay. So this checks if the current cell is alive. If it's alive, the rule is if we have 2 or 3 neighbors, neighbor num is 2 or 3, we keep living. But otherwise, we die. Making this kind of late, so sorry for the yawns. Alright, otherwise, if we're dead, if they're exactly 3 neighbors, then we come to life. Otherwise, it stays dead. Alright, now the last step is to copy the values from the temporary grid to the current grid. And the reason is we can't edit directly is it'll mess up the counts if we're editing cells along the way. But this is actually pretty easy. Just loop over the values and say, you know what, actually, guess would be way easier. We could just say grid equals temp grid. Huh. So this doesn't copy the values, but it changes. Grid now references this variable we created. So I think that should just work. Alright, let's test it out. Let's see if this works. So we should see some life. And I think we got it. Yep, looks good. Now to test real quick, I'm going to see if our glider works. So I'm going to set random start. I guess it's in the app. I'm going to set random start to false. So it's going to start with the glider. Run it. And yeah, check it out. It just moves down the screen. Alright, apologies for the low energy. It is quite late. Well, for me, I'm trying to get my bedtime down. But hope this is useful. And good luck.